In terms of writing routine, say when you travel, like I think there are like different methodologies. I can think of you write on the spot. So let's say you are on a train, you are in a coffee shop, and you actually do the writing. Otherwise, you just take random notes, like a couple of paragraphs here and there, even using your mobile phone. And the third way I can think of is you just experience, and then once you are back to, let's say, home, just to make it simple, then you redact your memories. What will be your methodology?
Yeah, all of the above. It depends, again, if I'm doing more sort of professional writing or if I'm just writing for self-expression. Self-expression, I find then you don't always know if you're going to write about a travel experience after it happens. But when you do know, that's a really interesting thing. And you have this, you've had some crazy thing has just happened to you, or you've seen something that really moves you, or you've had to overcome something, and you feel this urge to write about it. You can't function as a person until you've written about it. Go and write about it. But normally that version that you've just written about the day after it happened or the night that it happened is not the version you're going to want to publish. You have to give yourself some distance to it and come back and edit a day, a week, a month later. And unless you're on a deadline, then you figure it out. But if you have the luxury of time, that's so important. I mean, so the piece that I had published in the journal Roads and Kingdoms was about a weird bar that I would go to in Shanghai that was run by this Canadian expat. And it was just a noodle house, like in the outskirts of the city. But at night, he had a deal with the owner where he'd bring out the kegs, and a bunch of weird English teachers from various different countries would come around. And I wrote about this 5 years or so after that place had closed down. And I hadn't intended to. It just came to me one day when I was living in Madrid, and it was just, I have to do this. So when it comes to self-expression and you have the luxury of time, the process can be really quite random.
Yeah. And one thing that I find interesting, because it affects not only the writing but the experience of traveling. If you decide that you are going to write about what's happening to you, let's say when you are in Colombia, maybe the experience will change because your disposal it's different, because you want to make it, let's say, something that can be part of a book. So you might add some covers or something exciting about, and then at a some point you are aware that you are not being natural. So is it a conflict that you experience, or you are able to separate, let's say, the writer and the traveler?
Very interesting question. I think for those of us who identify as writers, and being writer is not like being a doctor or a lawyer, you don't have to be qualified. You just have to start calling yourself that. Anyone can say that. But for those of us who have decided to self-appoint ourselves as writers, I don't necessarily know if there's a contradiction between living your normal self or kind of consciously trying to influence experience so as to optimize it for writing. Like if you read, say, Paul Thoreau, who's one of the classic contemporary travel writers, if that's not an oxymoron, classic contemporary, but he's always asking the difficult question or approaching the weirdest looking person in the train corridor or disagreeing with the person he speaks to, because it's going to result in better, what we would now call content, better material. But that doesn't feel he's deliberately acting in a way to get something better to write about, but it doesn't feel disingenuous. It feels it's just his personality.